그래서 네 담말라 자식들이 삼지 도파들이 뭐들이 감나들이
I want to wish everybody Tashi Dele and good morning or good evening, wherever you are.
We have here translator just in front of us, beside me. Tsering chute motini 다시 나올래 다시 모주 통해
So today, the Dharma teaching that I am giving is the 37 Bodhisattva practices by Gyaltse Togme. So whether we are listening, contemplating, or practicing and meditating on the Dharma, our motivation is extremely important. So today you all are listening to the Dharma, and for my part, I am teaching Dharma, and even for me also, my motivation is very important. So in general, any Dharma practice, for any Dharma practice, we need the proper motivation. It's extremely important. But in particular, in this context where we are learning the Mahayana Dharma and the Bodhisattva practice, this is for the benefit of all sentient beings, this practice that we are learning about here. So we have to have this vast attitude of Bodhichitta. This vast motivation of Bodhichitta is especially important in this context. So we just need to remind ourselves of this at the beginning. So I request that you all listen with this motivation, to set this motivation of bodhicitta. And so what we are learning here today, what I will teach here now, is the 37 Bodhisattva practices. And this is a condensation, a kind of condensed version of the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. This text that we're learning today, the 37 Bodhisattva practices. The thing about the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva is that it's quite extensive, very long. So this text, the 37 Bodhisattva practices, is basically taking the essence of that of the Way of the Bodhisattva in a short form that's more easy or convenient to learn. So there's three main sections or main topics in this text. There's the virtue of the beginning, which is the introductory section. Then there's the virtue of the middle, which is the main text itself. And there's the virtue at the end, which is the concluding section. So for the virtue of the beginning, which is the introductory section, we have two parts to that. The homage, or the verse of homage or auspiciousness, and the commitment to compose the text. These are the two parts of the introductory section. And then as for the virtue in the middle, the text itself, this has two sections: the preliminary practices and the practices of the main part. Those two are the sections of the So there's the two sections to the virtue of the main, virtue in the middle, the text itself, the preliminary parts, the preliminary sections, and the main part of practice. And in the preliminary section, there's 7 topics, and we've finished all of those. And now we are in the second section, the practice of the main part. And here in this second section of the practice of the main part, we have the three sections of the lesser individual, the middling individual, and the greater individual. And we finished the first two sections of the lesser individual and the middling individual. And now we have reached the section on the great individual, the practice for the great individual. And this again, this section on the practice of the great individual is again divided into two sections. The conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. And now we have finished the first of those two, conventional bodhicitta, and now we're getting into the second section on ultimate bodhicitta. So in the first of these two sections in the practice of the great individual, the section on conventional bodhicitta, this is again divided into two. The section on exchanging self and others in the meditation session is the first section. And then the second section of conventional bodhicitta is taking suffering onto the path that is taught in 10 points. So it will take too long to explain all of these again one by one. So I'm just summarizing for you now. So now we have arrived at the practice of ultimate bodhicitta, and this also, like the conventional bodhicitta, is divided into the two sections of the practice of the meditation session and the practice outside of the meditation session, or sometimes called the post-meditation. As far as the first of these two, the practice of ultimate bodhicitta in the meditation session, this involves meditation free from conceptual elaboration, in which grasping has been eliminated, or grasping has been abandoned. And the practice of ultimate bodhicitta outside of the meditation session has two aspects. It's the first being to abandon the kind of clinging and grasping to the object of attachment, and the second aspect being abandoning or eliminating clinging, grasping to the object of anger. So now I will explain the practice of ultimate bodhicitta in the meditation session, which is a meditation free from conceptual elaboration, in which grasping has been abandoned or eliminated. So now this is taught by the 22nd verse of the text. So this verse goes, the practice of all the Bodhisattvas is never to entertain concepts which revolve around dualistic notions of perceiver and perceived. In the knowledge that all these appearances are but the mind itself, whilst mind's own nature is forever beyond the limitations of ideas. So now we have arrived at the practice of ultimate bodhicitta, and up to this point we were learning about the conventional bodhicitta, and in that practice of conventional bodhicitta, this involves concepts, conventional thinking, or a conceptual thinking, and it involves a subject and an object. In other words, when we do these practices of conventional bodhicitta, we have to think conceptually, and that's the level that this practice is on. And another way to express this is that the practice of conventional bodhicitta involves the concepts of the three spheres of the subject, the action, and the object, because there's you as an individual, and there's other things that you're interacting with. It's on this level of duality. But now what we are getting into here with the ultimate bodhicitta is a practice that is free from those concepts of the three spheres of a subject, object, and action.
뉴몽바단 데비 잠닝지 직체 뉴몽바다 마데비 잠닝지 니어 다야 단데델라 산삼지 샤고 디마샤네 키란자 뉴몽바 유스 상마 잠닝지 대야 잠닝지 군습 장주 유셈 나라 제 팅기레스 마레스 뉴몽바다 냠보요 베다 잠닝지 제당단 데비 잠닝지 중구레 도자단 데비기 잠닝지 중구레 Timudan Jewi Jamning, this someone Jamning Re, and this Jamning Kunzu which are just me Jamning Tananazuka so share the rebels and the Mares. Kunzu which are just say the share of them, share of Danyam the Jevach. And the Langsam Danyam the Jevach. Tendeji Yovadilla, Tendejilla, and Jamning Kunzu which are just same cigarettes. That share of my imbo, you more than Jewaji and Jamning Juna. Dian kunzu bijang jisim chage yo marta ni dus ni de chanan zo yo che bores ta sherab dang de de wach jamning je laksam mane semjing ge rang ke jizing gi mayim ba shen che ber zen ba ke sem chikpu ta sherab ko ra laksam mane ge ji ha gon semje na dende ji ge jamning je yo ba na te kunzu jang jisim chage res te ning la ngi doja she da timuk dan de de jamning je de 다 군주 전주심 나로 신이 상계로선 또 상계요 말레스 뉴모 the date 군주 전주심 다 람나 지기 어디 이나 신이 받 자기요 말레스
So it's important here to distinguish between two types of conventional bodhicitta. On the one hand, there's the conventional bodhicitta that is involved with afflictive emotions. And on the other hand, the other type is the conventional bodhicitta that is not caught up in afflictive emotions. So it's important to distinguish these two because we may make the mistake that a bodhicitta and this kind of compassionate bodhicitta attitude that involves some afflictive emotions may be the real bodhicitta, but this is not the case. So we need to distinguish these two. So it's possible that we will have a bodhicitta that is caught up in anger, and it's possible that we have a bodhicitta and a compassionate attitude that is caught up in attachment, and it's possible that we may have a attitude of a bodhicitta, a compassionate attitude of bodhicitta that is caught up in ignorance. These are this would be the bodhicitta that is caught up in afflictive emotions, the first of these two types. And this is actually not the true bodhicitta or the genuine bodhicitta. The true, genuine bodhicitta is not involved with afflictive emotions. It's not caught up in afflictive emotions, but rather it is a attitude of compassion that is connected with wisdom and with a very a kind of a high level altruistic attitude. So on the one hand, we have to have the wisdom that sees, that understands that we should not cherish ourselves, the wisdom that leaves aside the cherishing of ourselves, but rather understands the importance of cherishing others, and have in this way have this kind of very high-level altruistic attitude. This is the real, genuine, conventional bodhicitta, where you have this. It involves the wisdom and a high level, a high degree of altruistic attitude. The other type, the conventional bodhicitta, which is involved with afflictive emotions, we may, you can call it bodhicitta in a way, but it's not really the genuine, true bodhicitta.
That is new mobile the David Jam Yingji, around the new mobile, good Ningu Maris, go man, Ningu Chago Maris, you move a pair to this. And around the church in the new mobile, no good, good news, Yungu Tanguras. They do Tanda Gangla Yubiki, that Kuju Janji seem to share up down dead. Yana Lasan the dead will be Kunzu Janju Simjera. Tiki Kari fingers now around new mobile number time, chap over it. Good name to the rest new mobile. The good name, Tini, round the pendulum so far, the Shindon pendulum so far, you got a pendulum over it, and data will which you like, Kunzu Janju Simjera.
So, to explain this a little more, the conventional bodhicitta, which is involved with afflictive emotions, this will not serve to decrease our afflictive emotions. It will just allow them to continue and increase, in fact, if we have this type of bodhicitta that's involved with afflictive emotions. And on the other hand, the true, genuine bodhicitta, which is not involved with afflictive emotions, and which has wisdom and a high degree of altruistic attitude, this true, genuine bodhicitta will serve to reduce the afflictive emotions. And this is what we are doing as when we're practicing the Dharma, isn't it? This is what Dharma practice it basically comes down to. What it involves is to reduce the afflictive emotions. So when we have this pure, really genuine bodhicitta with a high degree of altruism and wisdom and no afflictive emotions, this will reduce our afflictive emotions. So in this way, this genuine, true bodhicitta will serve to accomplish our own welfare. It will serve to accomplish our own benefit, as well as the welfare and benefit of others. So we may wonder if it's possible that we may only practice conventional bodhicitta. Is conventional bodhicitta alone enough for us to practice? Is that enough? Is this practice of conventional bodhicitta enough for us to attain the state of liberation and omniscience? This is actually not the case. It is not enough just to practice conventional bodhicitta to attain a level of omniscience. What we need is also the ultimate bodhicitta.
That the not just we same Dela ne Tanda Kapsi Papa Dela Nawa ni double Shananti dos Namba Sem Dang Sem Koran Tongba Chi Kare Naranzu Nang de Gira yuji. Di tsama sem yinba tam. Kona chila madruba. Chikche. Tene sem korang yang. Tene tajin chena. Tene dambala senare sem korang tajin chena. Chigyang sema tang. Temba druba meba. Tene dradra am. Tene chik tongba ni. Rangshin. Deta buki tene. Tene damba ki nelu. Chigyara. Kanazo jule. Kigeres kasita dingi ding hakona nawa de sememba hako semdi totalimba hako sona tokwaina tan nyam ta re tokpa dingi gi toni mal hako mana nelu kita tan nelu narang zolo chige denda ma nelu de khari segersna pena uma kapsuina nangdong sungjuks ro chawjin ji kapsuina saldong sungjuks ni dile yaadu na zolchin kapsudona ni repasna re ritung sumchuksen ko sumjuk ta neluk ti na to ta dan ye ka thanda kap su ba ngana so chewati nangdong sumjuk sha ge dos kana uma shi sha chin nawa samje sem yin ba dan nawa de chila ma du ba ti bena sem jam ba gi tawa cha du go re ni yang sem di khora ya nawa de chi yul di ma du ba temba madruba che tian sem di temba dugu yores na nang sem di rangshin res ne sem di an temba madruba ten pa dugu res di ume bege ni ten pa uma ta jure ro nang jure mangbo ta khade khandari na ume ten pa pro nawa di sem yimba di sem jamba che ni sem khoran ya temba madruba di uma ten pa pro neluk di to ya la teni ana jo thanda dandam sem ji ko yores 디다보기 내룩저라 송죽지 망동 송죽지 똑바로 잡아라 전단 심지 인지미지 개좀 그랬어.
So here in this practice of the ultimate bodhicitta, we have two aspects. On the one hand, we realize that the external objects that we experience are in fact they don't have an independent existence, and they are in fact just our minds. In fact, they don't have independent existence, but they're just a projection of our mind. That's the first aspect. And then the second aspect is that then looking in at that mind, we realize that the mind itself is emptiness, or free from conceptual elaborations. That's the nature of the mind. For the second aspect, is emptiness and free from conceptual elaborations. So on the one hand, we realize that external objects are not independently established and existent, and are just consist of our own minds. And then on the other hand, looking what is the mind, we realize that the mind is emptiness and free from conceptual elaborations. So if we go through this process and meditate and practice in this way, with these two aspects, understanding these two aspects, then we will be able to give rise to the realization of the natural state and the nature of reality and the ultimate bodhicitta. So if we think about this in terms of the philosophical systems, the way that this nature of reality is formulated in the Madhyamaka system is that it is a unity of appearance and emptiness. And the way that it is formulated in the Mahamudra teachings is that the nature of reality is a unity of luminosity and emptiness. And the way that this is formulated above this and going higher and higher in the Dzogchen teachings, they talk about the awareness, or the awakened awareness, enlightened awareness. And the nature of reality there is said to be a unity of awareness and emptiness. So what we are concerned with here in this explanation of ultimate bodhicitta is, according to the first of these, the teachings of the Madhyamaka, in which the nature of reality is formulated as a unity of appearance and emptiness. So when we look at the external objects in our experience, and we realize that they have no independent existence, but rather they are just consist of the mind, of our mind. They're not established as external objects, but they are only our mind. In fact, this is the view of the mind-only philosophy, or this is the view of the mind-only system. And then when we then look at that mind next, and we realize that the mind is free of conceptual elaborations and free of and its nature is emptiness, then this is the view of the Madhyamaka, whether it's the Svatandrika or Prasangika. There's all many different kind of sub schools within Madhyamaka, but this second aspect of it, where we look at the mind now and see that it is emptiness and free of conceptual elaboration, this is the Madhyamaka view. So this is the ultimate bodhicitta. This is how the ultimate bodhicitta is practiced and how it's taught here in this text.
Yeah. Patanji Nawadamji sim res. Ni Nawadamji chilla teni temba res. Teni ta semina sem koraya teni ta jena chi temba na sema madrubas redus. Ani sem kora sema madruba indu sem de tomba ra tomba res. De tabo ki tomba 하서래 모셔봐 야나 지금 또봐 데들라 때니 네 된담 기 내로 이시지라 된다 이시에서라 이 귤레게 가서 귤레기기 요레스 가서 데다고 또봐이나 된담 내로 이게 셈다 참마 나와 담지 생각하지 하고 와 칠레 템바 마두바지 하고 야 셈데야 템바 마두바지 미카시야 노르시 셈데야 템바 마두바지 데이터보기 하고게 또 템바 마두바지 셈 코나야 니 진짜 마두바지 동바의 신지 딜라 넬룩시거라 딜리 이시에시거 민다나 넬룩시거 이시에시거 데이터보 줄레게 기테니 귤레 끼기 레스 데이터보지 가시 다 공자바이나 된담 장주 셈티 데 이들도 된담 장주 셈시거 나와데야 칠마도 템바 마두바 아니 셈데야 템바 마두바 진도 가자 그래 송주 차그래 뎀바 주바 셈마르 짐바디기 나데 천진지 오라 셈 단다 셈 셈마르 짐바지 뎀바 주바 싱게 디셈bre ngobu chi ngobu simgiyo ma simgi pa tasha simgi pa thulni one chila meba chila redu samne temba dubdu mone redu sane chila zindi ra ta chi nawa de maimba zinge di sim koranya deni temba madru ti madru yang do kanche gore zungjo cha dile ishe sigere dil nelo sigere ti doa gi pendo dile ni dundam janju gi semya sigere simge dundam janju sim sewa sim na de sim to dujana to ro yisena
나와 디 마주파당 세미양 주디 나와당 셈 중주
오 다디 가르스나 덴바마도 나와디 미망cho ngarawdo samagi le dangbo ba kansaji na nawa thamji pena nawas na ta khariji khandiji se ko chilo ge subda di ro re cha ra ti thangma nawa se ra ti chilo la dubere thinge ra la ta ye ngoni chin dubyo mar temba dubyo mar di nawa di thangma chilo la ma dubdo sem khorang ge pa na sha des sem khorang bakcha ge pa thulmi ngoni chilo du sam de maru chilo le yo mares 다 chilo 매바 이 하고를 또 다 이내야 가지고 친나와 디 셈레도 셈데 바투비 지레스 세마투비 지레스 땡기어 다 나랑 소마 셈 코네 딱 지잖아 템바투고요 말레스 뭐 동바차데 동바 나와 나저나 시람님보다 숙동바 동바니 숙소 술로 동바니 시 많이 세지도 지 디가랑다 수야 누구요 말에 셈가 다샤죠 셈 코라야 데버트가 지여레선 요마레 똥바레 디 똥바다 하고게 또게 지여라 셈치다 또게 하고게 지여라 델라 디 나조 하고게 하고에기 지다 가레서 오르텔라 넬루 우스빌 텔리시에스 디 숨주텔 디 똑똑 하고 나조 냠네 시기 검자게 미지나 디하 먹었나 또 도스카고 그랬어
Okay, so there's a real kind of reason for why it is taught in this way. It's very important to understand it in this way, with these two aspects. That on the one hand, the external objects, what we perceive, actually does not exist. It has no independent existence. We all grasp to external objects and perceive them as independently existing outside of us. All the things that we see and hear and smell and taste and think and so on and feel, we experience these things as being independent external entities. But in fact, they are just actually projected by our minds in that way. They don't have any external independent existence, and they don't have this existence that we impute to them, which is here, I think it translated as the concepts and the dualistic notions. Either one you could say is those external objects don't exist in that way that we're imputing with our mind. So then we first have to realize that, and then it's possible that people then may make the mistake that if the external objects are not independently existed and just created by our minds, projected by our minds, then the mind must exist in some way. People may make that mistake. So in order to avoid that mistake, then we then consider and realize that the mind itself is also emptiness, and beyond concepts, there's no independently existing, truly existing mind either. So, and this realization, or this state of a reality, this is called, this is termed the natural state, or the primordial wisdom, wakefulness. And this is also, we can think of as a unity. It's the unity of the emptiness of the external world, and at the same time, the mind is also emptiness and beyond concepts. So this is exactly what is referred to in the Heart Sutra, the Perfection of Wisdom Heart Sutra, when it is taught that matter is emptiness and emptiness is matter. This is the same reality that is being taught here.
Jidangi Suda di ro regja de la chi nawa sera til lo suba de nawa jiwa mare migi sutongaya da na ju da thwe da na gi thi sore da che gi ro nyong ya da ni da da lebo gi solwa ro den ju sama de jidar nawa de suda de ro regja sama nawa cha de dida rang gi sim stenge de shi nya ba da di sama chila mone dembar druba semar druba ji yo mare Di sama rangi sem ki nang de gyor ma do thul de gyor ma do mone chila suk mone duba ji jiga dat mone dub de gyor ji temba duba ji yo ma res pena milam da bur milam na la ngo dat hu re suk chima sor gu re da mone ni cheong do ko yo ma ra di sama na wa tham ji me ba cha ru da yo na ko ro mone yo bo ra thong ge yo re di thol ge re milam na la ab je thu gu da ya ni na milam ni cheong do ko min do na wa tham ji la ru da Tita chipochi yang res. Ini jitar nawa dita rangi sims. Tadi sem sambata wo timbe. Chila su tubaji yo mares. Sama sem gi korama nang de yo res. Sem si sem sambata yo. Nipa sik dila sem ni dweni tubi thodan das. Taya di nawa di demba tuba di chila yo mares. Sem gi nang de yo res. Sem korangi thul nipa chilo nang de yo res. Labgudu. Ta sem ni dweni tubi. Sem koraya deni demba tuba ji. Mareve se na namdo jilang na simni kurang mares simni sim kurang demba duba ji mares simni dönni dubi thoda sim kurang ye dömani teni ta ngana duba gese jwa ta shi duba gese jwa namdo yo me niga nime se jwa onwa me dowa me ba ta te me ba do ta denzu sigir dubi ta 탐지 dam jawa 지금 많이 니 많이 se jwa 타 탐지단 자와르스티 가르르서는 드만이 드만이 거랑 저바 타단 자와들라 동바세 닝이 동바실라서 된다미 니루 이시세지도 오다 딜레세게 어디디 우마부된 거 레스타 지니바디 당부 센잠바다 오지니가 우마디 센잠바다 소디 나와된 거래 나와디 칠라 마두바치 심기된 마두바치 나와치 부된 니바 우마바디 얘도 숨주된 거래 조조데 Duals. Any Dini Shin Sungin Semana, Dini Sidu, the count 68 to see Jabu Daram, yet the kick the count.
So now we can see how the verse teaches this. So here the verse goes, the order in Tibetan is different from the order in English, but so in Tibetan it starts with the third line, in the knowledge that all these appearances are but mind itself, or are but the mind itself. So here, when it's talking about the, when it used this word appearances, it's talking about the things that we experience with our senses in our lives. the visual forms that we see with our eyes, and the sounds that we see that we hear with our ears, and the tastes that we experience, and the smells and sensations, and so on. All of these are referred to with that term appearances. So as I explained before, all of these appearances are just projected by the mind. They're a delusion of the mind. Perceiving them as external objects is just a delusion, which is projected by the mind. So this is this line here, this third line in the English, the third line, in the knowledge that all these appearances are but the mind itself. This is teaches the view of the mind only. The first of these two aspects that I explained previously. And then the fourth line in the English, which is the second in the Tibetan, whilst mind's own nature is forever beyond the limitation of ideas. So this is when we get into the second aspects and look into the mind itself. If everything is just a delusion, these external appearances are projected by the mind in a confused way. It's a delusion to perceive them as external objects. If that is the case and they're created by the mind, then what is the mind itself? And what is the mind that is perceiving those? The mind's own nature is forever beyond the limitations of ideas. So the mind has always been, has forever been, always eternally free from these concepts or limitations of ideas. And there's various lists of these different sets of these conceptual elaborations, are sometimes translated as, or here they're translated as ideas. The mind is beyond the four extremes, which is it doesn't exist, it doesn't not exist. On the other hand, it's not the case that it both exists and doesn't exist at the same time. And it's also not the case that it's neither exists nor doesn't exist. It's beyond any of these kind of concept, or the also the 8 conceptual elaborations of coming and going and so on. The mind is beyond coming and going, and so on. There's another set of 8, but rather it is just it is emptiness, and this is what is referred to by those terms: emptiness and the natural state, and primordial wisdom or wakefulness. And just another point about the appearances, the external appearances that are referred to here, in the knowledge that all these appearances are about the mind itself. The analogy for this is that it's like a dream. All of these appearances that we perceive are just the mind. They really don't exist independently, just in the same way that when we have a dream, we have various kinds of experiences, and we see different things or taste certain things, and we can hear things with our ears even in the dream. But once we wake up and the dream is over, none of that exists. We can see that none of that was really real. It was just this projection. So it's the same here with their external appearances. They're all just they don't have true existence as independent existence.
예. 집배도 지잖아. 나 다, 디, 로다 오지라. 다 로뇽그라. 마르큐르렌자 간데 로뇽나. 배나 커피도 오지. 드링나 커피지 동이도. 라. 나나디니 공배 잡지. 슈데레 아리가 다 가와나라나 수수기 nearby. 공배 잡지. 딩에드린 캐페지 동그리. 캐페 닝주 지 동그라. 땅아테 커피 팀마 티토. 팀마 시부칼. 땅아 팀마 카도 전에 나디 커피 강바드 나가더니 커피지 오더 데가 두기 더 팀마 시부디게 차. 디디 커피 팀마라. 다 도레. 저도 나랑 커피 통니 두고 다 찔레라지 고여라. 로토지 만다지. 그 커피지 오더 때도 딱고 커피지 뚱데. 뚱도 커피지 심부처래. 다디 다 커피지 가래. 로라. 찍디 팀마데 티로와. 그런 이데 드로니 커피 뚱데. 드링 커피 뚱제 다 나로. 아니 나로용도 다 산이 양자 걸레. 캐피다 가나를 딜롱도 다지고 커피지 뚱고 ထဲ디 무데야 보시라 네 디 커피지 뚱고 ထဲ양자고 나 주도 캐피나 주도도 커피 수긴지라 커피 수긴 담미 디 캐피라 커피 수긴 미디 심바 미지 당고 미디 마레 당고 미디 미도 오프 데이다 데이 오브젝트 드로사 드링 미 서버지 다고 커피지 수요래 양자 다고 커피 수도 거기 간 텐데스나 당공 고비 찍어지냐 수그레 텐데 나고 고비 오더 때 대용도 코 당보랑 거는 무리야 보면도 이거 미디에 코 미심바엔도 코 고비디 오더 때도 고비 심부 마중을 코 고비 심부 마중 코 시다라 나고 때 메시지 시다라 거는 나 당공 고비 텐데 통이 tema 심부 가서 또 로야 보도 로야 보 중송 드링 커피 야오면도 간선은 미디 민두스 당고 미디에 민두 드링 미디기 커피 야고 스웨 마송 슬라데 당고니 커피 코랑라 덴버 두바 지나 덴버 두바 당고 나시 커피 코랑라 덴버 두바 세마 두바 지나 커피 드링에 심부 고인고레스
커피 집으신 게 아니라
커피 집으지자 고모네 다 수코랑라 고네 덴버 두바 지나 모네 지 덴버 두바 지나야 수코 줄구 마라 주와테고 마라 다들 유로 간지 태피어래 코 데마르바 마임벨레 때니 똥바니기랑 신레 임발레 때니 그루와 태피어 미다고 유두고라 오늘 데마르바지 된라 데마르바지나 거기 줄고 말아 딱고 간지래 프로젝트 코 드링 당공기 통해데 말아 딱고랑 심기 땡니고 단지 짐바도 짐바지어라고 거기 신부기지 리플렉션디 메고 딜레 룽랑르마도 거기 코랑 룽랑 말해 그거서 당고기 코코비디 마라네 코랑기 디 리플렉션 조라 룽지 테스트 조라 심기 땡니 테스트 조라 디디 드링고 코비디 마라도 룽나 티 코코비시 부 마중레스 또 코비 코랑 뭐네 지 심부지 당보 된라 코랑 룹데바지 요나 그냥 코비 심부 용거레스 코비 수수나 지 버레스 심부 요거레스 마레스 뭐네 된라 마두바 라테네 kopi jurwa tepu guda into so mone kol phayo marang semgi ba nang semgi nang de gyore ma to chi thenla kopi khorang la drup de wadi yo mares pe da shana
so I can give you an analogy for this the fact that the external objects are not don't have establishment as an independent existence. They're not established with their own independent existence. So let's say there's someone who is walking around their town, wherever it may be, wherever you may be in America or whatever other country, walking around their town and they see they walk by a cafe, and they see the really beautiful coffee that is being served there, and it looks so delicious. And they may even smell the scent of the coffee, and then they get the idea, oh, today I'm going to go to that cafe and get myself a cup of coffee. It looks really good. It smells really good. It will taste really good. And here, this is one of these appearances that is being referred to here in the verse. It's the taste and the smell, right, of a coffee is something that is referred to here by this term appearances in the verse. It's something that we experience, that appears to us, or that we experience. So this person will then think, I'm going to get a cup of coffee, and they go into the cafe, order the coffee, and they drink the coffee, and the taste is so nice, and the scent is also very nice of this coffee, and they really enjoy that experience of that appearance of the coffee. It's very nice for them, and then they go back home, and then the next day they have the same idea. Maybe I'll get a cup of coffee today. But that next day, the mood is not really the same. Their mood is not really the same. They're not as into the coffee as before. But in any case, they go to the cafe and then order another cup of coffee. And but at this time, the next day when they order the coffee, this time the person, the worker in the cafe who makes the coffee is not the same person as the day before. And then when this person drinks the coffee, they, even though the coffee itself is exactly the same, they don't have the same nice experience that they had before with the cup of coffee the day before. Somehow it doesn't taste right. It doesn't taste the same to them. They're disappointed. And they think to themselves, oh, this is a person who made my cup of coffee today. This is not the same person that made the coffee yesterday, and they didn't make it right. This coffee doesn't taste good, even though in fact the coffee is the same. There's nothing actually changed in the way that this new worker made the coffee. So this is exactly, this is a good analogy for this, the fact that the external objects are not truly established. They don't have an independent external existence. Because here, if the coffee as an external object was truly existent, it would always be the same for this person. They would always enjoy it the same way. It would always taste the same way. But we can see that that's not the case. It's because of this person's mind. The coffee actually changed. It has no independent existence of itself, so it has no stable kind of identity. And because the person is a little bit upset or has a bad mood that day, and he thinks that the worker didn't make the coffee correctly, then the experience of that appearance then changed. That appearance then changed. So that appearance of the coffee, the experience of the coffee and the flavor of the coffee So we can see this analogy illustrates the way, in a similar way, that the external objects that appear, they have no independent existence of themselves. They're just projected by our minds.
아디 딩이 조디들 지다르 나와데다 랑기 심세지도 시당보디체 니와디 심니 되니 주베터단다 세바프라야 다진체오나 데니지게 세마주바 아니 렘버주바지 얘기 말레스 다진체나르다 다진 마지나데 참마 렘버주데버타고지 통그레 남데기레 마라조다 코르와데야 데데지니 코르발레 참데레스 렘버주바지 sam Teni adi duni drubi tadan dra se sim khuraya teni drubi tadan dra de ina drubi tadan dra wa ina yang nawa druba tachi tongba tongyang pa rewes na tachi du namga dra mares nawa de yure nawa de temba ma druba chi na na ya ta sin chen na dela ma druba chi druba tadan dra wa chi sungju cha ru res ta di chang du 대니 현이 송진 체만 남스 대니 현에 세도 다 심코라야 트바타담 자와지 현에 송진치 송유율 낭진비 셈 남도 야도 경이 간디지原来 참마 체마 담제도 체마 대대도 진진 송진세도 치송유율 단지 나와지라 송와 유율지 셈드라지 디 징겐치 답변하는 저 인데 야 야포 땡게 독자 땡게 네지 디바사겐데 게와사겐데 셈지도 디사마데 체마남스 순진기 체마스나 다 체마스나 인데다 징기 모네 덴바레 삼바스 삼무지 요라 체마남스 일라메제스도 마랑도 셈들라 데니지 마짐바친 셈 짐바로 추춤보 마셈바치니 트바코랑 다시 단지 되는 조바단 자와지도 그래 셈마짐바 마레스 미데다보 냠네 지긴들 야스 장주 셈바 남지 된지 냠네 지기요레스 다 진데긴 주요 순진이가라 순와들라 짐바슈 아니 카라제 징게 셈데라야 짐바슈 소나 되니 야스 남지 라렌 차기요 말 일레 제바 차기 일레 미제바 차기 말 일레 제소나 짐바슈 주고래 된 코와 잠도 그랬어 다 일레 미제세나 그 셈마 짐바지요라 순진이 순와 줍데바 짐바 셈데야 줍데바 데바 줍바 데다 미제라 데데 일레 미제 줍바 다시 줍바 게난다와지 코라 냠네 지긴들라 장주심바 다 장주심바 스나가 장주심바 냠네바 장주심바 냠네 데리 진나게 요레스 야세 장주심바 냠네 데리 진나게 요레스 말이었다 딜라 돈담 페나 인디레 셰럽 다 페나 군주 장주심디 탑라오지나 돈담 장주심디 아니 셰럽라오자 페나 군주 장주심 지구게 단인가 라인바 산지고마 토마레스 딜라 셰럽 고레스 페나 미글롱와 미샤라죠나 미 마통에 이제 람바 drogo나 미 통에 이제 람바 티고라 미 통에 디 셰럽레 미 마통에 디 람바 파도인데 타오레 군주게 장주심데 아니 단담 장주심디 미 통에 디 셰럽 티고 티오나 데 니가 파르겐라 파 safely you can reach the other distance, right? Yes.
The Congressman, the taking some drooping matters in a young bete
동버 동자 많이 봐.
좀 그러면
남가다고 동버 동자에나 양 말아서 디차로 한다. 디차로 인진이 들라기도 타니파 송도 하고서 타니를 송도 야나 여바라롱 야나 메비 탈라롱도 엔 간도 들라기도 애틀레틱 하나 애틀레즘 내가는
예 니힐리즘
동버 동장 레스나는 송도 그랬어 남과도 동버 동장 많이 봐지 야 나와 요지 나와 대 되게 따진 제용도 칠람 덴바 마두바시 셈 코랑에 난데바시 셈 코랑데야 따진지나 덴바 마두 데니 순주샤도 딜러 트라스라 tende jikta nelukti ni nyamle jigem patila ni chanju simba namji nyamle tende jinang yures yasi chanju simba.
So then to continue with the verse, it says, now going to the first two lines of the English, the practice of all the Bodhisattvas is never to entertain concepts which revolve around dualistic notions of perceiver and perceived. So here, the dualistic notions of perceiver and perceived, this is actually what I have just been explaining. The appearances and objects of our experience are not independently established. They are just projected by the mind as a delusion. So this is the perceived, and then as far as the mind itself, the perceiver, this also is not a established. This is beyond concepts and emptiness and so on. But on the other hand, it's not the fact that it is completely non-existent, that there is absolutely nothing there. Rather, it is like it's not like a completely empty lack of anything, but rather it is this reality that is beyond existence and non-existence and so on, beyond those conceptual elaborations or ideas, as it's translated here. So this is the these are the dualistic notions of the perceiver and perceived, these kind of concepts of the external objects, external objects of our experiences as existing, and of the experiencing mind as also existing. So it's not that way. In fact, as it says here, the mind is doesn't truly exist either. It's forever beyond the limitations of ideas, beyond these conceptual constructs. And so then the next line here, the first line being, the practice of all the Bodhisattvas is never to entertain concepts which revolve around dualistic notions of perceiver and perceived. So so these are the dualistic notions of the perceiver and perceived, is the appearance, the object of our experience, and the mind. And here, when it says the practice of the Bodhisattvas is never to entertain concepts, this has to do with the grasping and the dealing with these dualistic notions of the perceiver and perceived, dealing with the external objects of our experience and dealing with our own mind, and thinking that these things are truly existent, independently existent. This is what is meant here when it says to entertain these concepts. So whatever kind of a concept we may have about our experience, whether it's our own mind or the external world, we think it's good or bad or virtuous or non-virtuous and so on. And even these concepts of the Dharma practice, of the Dharma teachings of the virtue and non-virtue, and the path, the stages of the path, and attaining enlightenment, and so on. All of these actually have to be let go. The practice of all the Bodhisattvas is to never entertain these concepts, is to release all of this grasping and clinging in this way to these kinds of concepts. Yeah, so this is the meaning of these first two lines in the English. The practice of all the Bodhisattvas is to never entertain concepts, to never grasp and cling to these dualistic notions of a perceiver and perceived.
Dengi shene sungzin tsema yila mechi sungzin ki tsema chi sungwi nang zimbi ki semdi zimba chayora di yila chayga mares sungzin sina kandir sina da khurwa pangay da tharpa tamji kimba thobe ki lo chayora zimba chay da lamla loba lamla labgi kyasi chanchu semba namji teni di yila zingi yo mares yila chayga yo mares yila chayna sungzin chayro Konaba yila chegi yo mares. Chi sung yulga zimba pa yila chegi yo mare. Nang zimbi semya yila chegi yo mare. Tarba di kopangla yonir chegi sungzi yila chegi yo mare. Ani korwa la ma chamgire sana taknang di jignang jora dunga ta chigi yora deyang yila chegi yo mares. Tiga ta dor duna ko tangyum. 야가 누가 당념 다르바 탐지기 고방다 코르바니 당념 아니 남도 송와다 짐바니 당념 돌디나 저절 똑사나 고 당념 자주 그러스 일로바 람갑스 자주 잠스만은 되는 냠리게레스 되는 잠스만 냠리
로벨라마
로발람 당라서 단다갑스 로발람레 샤고마도 된다고 그랑라 되니 고 딘조기 삼로 당당 미보고나 메레 Kumera ko namla ko samje traba dan rasa do azloba lam gosda jamji sima namji denreji so de tinji jimba so jimba chema jimba azo thara tamji kim ko ba thobuge jimba shu korwala ma so ne jimba shu ya bol jimba shu tujala jimba shu chi sum yul jimba shu nang de sen jimba pa mewa chage the yellow Mishiba, the changes in Bakonzo, Yamlin, the Nangi rest, Tanyum Zeta, Tanyum Tamati Tartu thing as a Tanyum Dita, Tokores.
So, to sum it up here, the verse says, the practice of all the Bodhisattvas is never to entertain concepts which revolve around dualistic notions of perceiver and perceived. So this phrase here is never to entertain concepts. What this boils down to is that the Bodhisattvas, they don't have grasping or grasping to any concept of whether it's an object of their experience or their own mind, the perceiving mind. They have no grasping to any of these things, either the external objects or the internal mind. So they don't have this concept, grasping concept, that I have to abandon samsara, have to eliminate samsara, and on the other hand, I have to attain the state of omniscience and liberation. They don't have this kind of grasping in that way. And they have no concepts of they don't have any grasping to the concepts either of this is a good thing or this is a bad thing and this is really truly that way. They don't have this grasping towards the good or the bad. And also they have no grasping even towards a virtue or non-virtue. They don't have this concept of a independently truly existing virtue or non-virtue. And they don't have this grasping at liberation and the state of omniscience as something that they're trying to get to and something very good that they need to go after. At the same time, they don't have the kind of thinking, oh, I need to get rid of samsara. It's not a good thing. I need to get out of samsara. They don't have these this kind of grasping. So this is what is meant by the verse. The practice of all the bodhisattvas is never to entertain concepts which revolve around the dualistic notions of perceiver and perceived. These bodhisattvas, when they're on that path of the bodhisattvas, they have this state of mind, which is actually a state of equanimity. It's a state of viewing things as being equal in a sense. There's virtue and non-virtue ultimately are equal in this way. There's an equanimity towards virtue and non-virtue. The good and the bad ultimately here are equal, and they have equanimity towards what may be considered good or bad. And even in samsara and nirvana in this practice are equal. They have an equanimity, this attitude, this state of mind of equanimity towards samsara and nirvana. So this is really the ultimate equanimity, and this is what the bodhisattvas practice. So this will be it for today. I will stop here. So our time is up here, and because this is a practice of ultimate bodhicitta is so important, it's very important. So this is why I've spent so much time today on it. And as what I've taught you today is the way to meditate on the ultimate bodhicitta. This is how you should all now meditate on the ultimate bodhicitta. And please ask any questions if you have any questions. Not yet.
Yeah,
Tukula says, quoting from the Heart Sutra, Prakamarpita Heart Sutra, there's no matter, there's no sound, there's no scent, there are no questions.
There's no answer.
There's one question. Okay, here's the thing.
No come.
Yeah. So the question is, what is the state of the mind that perceives the non-dualistic nature of phenomena? Is it a mind in a higher state of shamatha? Is it the main mind in direct absorption of the nature of things in the absence of other mental factors? Going to the Kepa Drabajure, the sem the Nime ki chuni toga ki semra yeshi yeshi di 그래서 신의 기 그래 클락베 신의 잡고 신의 토모 잡고 레베 야나 셈디 소셈 토셈랑 셈중으로 양나 셈디 소셈 임베셰 아니 소셈 추니 긴강라 Nyamper Shagba and he Semjung Mepere.
Korangiga so the Tiba de need of Chitoa. Yanas Josem di Revese, Rani Shamada
Tumbo
Shugi did the rest of the same Koran.
Yes, so some Kangba Semjung Mebis Tosem
Josem di
Yang Shine Tumbaris.
The same Koran Tambojina Semla Rimba Semjingi Semjigure Semla Semachi Semjanashin Vesalvo says it was Semla Semachi.
Oh, Semla Semachi.
Semjanashin Vesalvo says the Rimbasumir. Sem Sedi. Simjing around so taxing my jiva, Korwa get Simchidwa, till a sim sigure. That the same Shamata Poshu sim de Mare, Simjung sim de Sigure, Simjung sim that was Niga, don't be sim de la Sigure. Tambut. Sim taxing Giona, Sim Koran Nigi Mares. That's the same machis, Sim Koran le sim Drubio Mares. The other is another Shamata. Yamne chebo yongway na ta lobjong to sigura simbi kanile du tamboi jumsa nesa dosa duwe du mindu chita nchena sim kora nyegi mares sim demba drubaji chama drubaji nyegi mares sim la sim machise sim kora la sim yo mares sim dubyo mares te sumba de sim gi rangshin se sim gi rangshin de wesala ta wesala ta ye domani arazo ye doma Tamboni simje 탐지기 simgi rangshin wasa wale deres simgi rangshin di sim koran tanda yobadi simdi sim mare tul de simdir sim ngoma de kandir resena simgi koran wasa wale yora rangshin tadi kandir jin to korsena na shine da haudon la teni ene simgi rangshin wasa wale moshe kores ti moshe charsona tini di 다 말하자 심지어 탐지기 지 간섭을 홈도 강바도 심지어 탐지고 홈직만 돼요 말했어 맞아 상막이 툴데도 가가 차대로마도 뭐네 거랑 홈직이 그랬어 이 데버십이 인부터 했어 맞아 상막이 홈직 다 데디 뭐네 심기다 랑신 월살 받으래 이내 심지 랑신 월살로 데 심레 타데버레스나 타데버레스는 말했어 Same Koran the truth joke same draw. Truth the you same the rest. And you the same says to same the same matches and a thousand Logan Jana Hakugres. Same did the Mama do. The same taxi magina, same said the Korwala, some same so same down, same you need the same jidwa, Korwag same Sera. Oh, Dilla, same Shana to give. That the money seemed the rest and Maris, the truth seemed the rest. Same the same matches, 1,000 Jenna.
Oh, that's awesome.
Same Koran, same Demo do with your Maris, Korwa the truth that you send the rest. Diane, these same matches say the matches to same your Maris, marriage the same Koran, money, the Wesalvares.
Mm-hmm.
The Sanjit Dilla Nyamyong Dilla To, the Sanje Songra, Simbu Ranju Wesalva, not the Samal Yuris. In another Tulba, the Tulba, the game, Yana Nyomomba, the leg tibni, then he go Matombares, the same go Zoboshara, same money Koran Zorbo Mares, Tuja Mares, Tico Maranzo, no machine is Zorbochas on rest. This same ribbon number soon which do stuff.
So this is rather technical question, but the way it can be explained, the Tugolai explained the answer to this question in the terms of a line from the Prajnaparamita Sutra. It says, there is no mind in the mind, or the mind has no mind. The nature of the mind is luminosity. So there's three kind of parts to this quotation, this line there. First of all, there's the mind that has no mind, or the mind in which there is no mind. The nature of the mind is luminous. So the first of these, the first mind in which there's actually no mind, that first mind is kind of just the mind that we normally think of when we don't really examine, or we don't really get down to the truth of the matter that the sentient beings have. And if we don't examine the mind, it seems like we have this kind of dualistic mind. And here, in this first mind, this first part of the three that is taught in this quotation, here we can say that this mind is the main mind, and the other mental factors which were referred to in the question there. He said, is it the main mind in direct absorption of the nature of things in the absence of the other mental factors? So here it seems that the Tugula would say that it's not that, because this main mind and the mental factors, these are kind of technical philosophical terms, these actually refer to that first mind, which is the mind in which there's no mind, the first mind, which is just what appears as the minds of sentient beings, without really examining and getting to the truth of what is actually there. It's a kind of just an appearance of mind. But then when we examine and really look into it and meditate on that first mind, that's kind of a false mind, we find that there's actually no mind there. In other words, that mind does not actually exist. It has no independent existence. And so then we may use this meditation methods of the shamatha, was referred to in the question, the shamatha, and then also the vipassana, to examine that mind, that seemingly existent mind, and we find that there is no mind there, actually, that mind doesn't exist. And then finally, as we progress and gain more experience and realization, then we get to the third part of this quotation, this line from the Prajnaparamita, which is that the nature of the mind is luminosity. So on the one hand, there is no mind actually in that appearance of a mind, but on the other hand, it is not that it is actually absolutely non-existent. It is luminosity. So we then experience that in luminosity, and that's the true nature of the mind. And in fact, we all have this luminous nature of mind. That is all. That is the true nature of all of us. That is actually the real mind in a way. Whereas the first kind of appearance of a mind, maybe dualistic mind, is not really real. It's kind of like a distortion of the true nature of mind. So once we progress in this way and then realize the luminosity of the nature of mind, then this is how we gain experience and realization of that, and then we then attain a full realization of omniscience. And this is actually our true home. This luminous nature of the mind is the true home of all of us, of all sentient beings. It's our true nature, and we are just temporarily obscured by the afflictive emotions and the karma and this confusion, this diluted experience. That true nature of mind is just temporarily obscured by the afflictive emotions and the karma and the delusion. But in fact, that is our true nature, and it's our true home. It's the true home of all sentient beings. So all sentient beings are wandering. We're wandering through these six realms of existence in this kind of temporary state, but it's just a kind of temporary state of being away from our true home. And when we get to that luminous nature of mind, then we have arrived actually at our true home.
Similar loss to
there is no primordial wisdom or wakefulness outside of the dualistic mind, and there is no dualistic mind that is a separate or apart from the primordial wisdom.
Sanje Tamje Kurumbuche, the Sanje Konamba, Yeni Moshe Vadilla, Ishe Seres, Manzola Ishe the Yoreda, Ishe the Namshela Parlumso, Mo machine, Namshela, number Yula Shepa Sunsa, Song Santo, the Namshe Seres. The Dinil Shepa dress, Yini Moshe Vadilla, Ishe Sere, Mazo Yini Mo machine, number Yula Sempa, Zimba Song Sato, Namshe Seres. Namshe laws with Ishe, but Ishe laws with Namshi Yomaras. The barrel the barge chishok the more machine
okay. So the so there's no, as Tulku was just saying, there's no primordial wisdom that is separate or apart from dualistic mind, and there's no dualistic mind that is apart from the primordial wisdom. So you can think about it also in terms of the primordial wisdom, or the you can translate the Tibetan term yeshe as the kind of eternal awareness, primordial wisdom, eternal awareness, and the dualistic consciousness, or namshe, the consciousness of awareness of aspects, you can say, in the explanation that he's giving. So as far as the first one, the primordial wisdom or the eternal awareness, the yeshe, it means that this refers to the eternal recognition or awareness of one's own nature. One is primordially awake. It's the aspect of being primordially awake to one's own nature, or being eternally aware of the true nature of mind. And this is the wisdom of Guru Rinpoche and the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They have this primordial wisdom, this eternal awareness. But for us, we are more dealing with the awareness of aspects, or the dualistic awareness, you can say, the namshe. So the nature of our dualistic awareness is actually the eternal awareness, or the primordial wisdom. That's the true nature. But what has happened is that we, even though that is the true nature of our mind, of our dualistic awareness, we have a kind of lost the nature in external objects or in dualistic perceptions. So that's why difference there is between the primordial wisdom, or the eternal awareness, and the dualistic awareness, is that the dualistic awareness is true. The true nature of the dualistic awareness is the eternal awareness, or the primordial wisdom, the yeshe, but it then kind of doesn't recognize itself and gets lost into the dualistic experience, and then this is why. Yeah, now so yeah, then because we're lost into this dualistic experience, we have this is how we get into the situation of samsara. So the thinking about this Tibetan word that I'm translating as a dualistic awareness, the namshe, number shepa. So the two components of this word have the nampa is the external object, refers to the external object, and the shepa is the awareness or consciousness. So what this type of consciousness, what this state of consciousness involves, is that the internal consciousness gets lost, that shepa, that internal consciousness that perceives, gets lost into the external objects, the external aspects or appearances of objects, the namba. So the problem here is really, the key problem is that we don't recognize that our consciousness for what it is. We don't recognize the eternal, that our consciousness is that eternal awareness. The last one.
How do we practice the
precepts and the Dharma in terms of ultimate bodhicitta if we don't differentiate between virtue and non-virtue? Or should we practice them in terms of relative bodhicitta? The Dendam Chantriki Sem Nyaman Chedu, the Gewa Dang Mi Gewa Tangyo Yena, Kandres Yewa Chegore, Kandres Nyaman Chedu Gewa Dang Mi Gewa, Kandres Yewa Chegore. Yana di mena kunzo Chantriki Sem Tola Nyaman Chegore.
That I Tambodi Kunzo Janju Sim Diabo, Janra, Jamba the Ninji. The Jang Savagela, the Namdo race, Kunzo Janju Sim Dia, Jamba the Ninji, Namdo Nane, Namdo those yards. Then Lamba Sherabda de Bayana, Chiga Sim Tosi, Langsam than Dembajina, Jam Ninji Dina, Kunzo Janju Sim Chagiroas. That the Janju, Denam Janju Sim, the Nelu. Nam Yishi the Gula Chegoina. Then the Namdo the young Nasimja Tamjila Tanyum la Kigoresta, Tuna Tanyum la. Tanta Simja Tamji Chitanachi, US to Tambo, Simja Tamjila Tanyum Letumara. Tanyum the lever Chabala, the Name Nam Janju Sim sherab ge tsi singores
Oh.
sherab ge tsi sindu teni tanyum le thugur mado kunju janju sem khoran chibu gi tanyum la le thug mares tanyum tok thug mares tanyum tok bar chewala dona janju sem di teni sherab ge tsi sinje tena yaga dan duwa dan korwa dan teni di thamje le pa tanyum mena yang korwa sin jimba shu ta ya tarba sin jimba shu jimba shung du ra ya jimba song sana teni tawa yung mare sherab yung mare deni chi ko chok long du gres chok chi lo long du gres di endo jane dona janju sem di niga nyambol do gres kunjo janju sem de sem de ta je chi do na chi ge yue de chi ge yue se do ngai gi chi ge yue de na yang rang chi zin shuk chumbo le yung gres di endo sherab ze sina tongni gi ze sina deni rang je bar jimba de lo di pa godnen du gres me ba cha de deni shen la ba je bar jimba de gong de pele gi chok chi ro ya di ma do ngai gi sem je na mi che du chi wu sherab je ma sina de rang je zin di ma ja che ro che du gre di me bar che bala ta ton nam jen sim gong go res yo go sherab je sing go res sherab di chik bu gi ko tang nyum gan le thu gre sherab me na tang nyum gan le thu ma re ta tang nyum men to ma to na ko ro pang du ma re
Okay, so so to answer this question, how do we practice the precepts and dharma in terms of ultimate bodhicitta if we don't differentiate between virtue and non-virtue, or should we practice them in terms of relative bodhicitta? So first, we first practice the conventional bodhicitta, right? So the conventional bodhicitta involves concepts, and it involves the some grasping to things being existent and these kind of concepts. But these concepts are probably these are the best kind of conceptual thinking that one can have. This really truly altruistic attitude of a conventional bodhicitta. It is the although it is conceptual, it is the best, the kind of highest kind of conceptual thinking that we can have, the most beneficial and highest of conceptual thinking. And then we get into the ultimate bodhicitta on the basis of the conventional bodhicitta. So first we practice that pure conceptual motivation of conventional bodhicitta, and then we get into the practice of ultimate bodhicitta, where there is no concepts. And here in the practice of ultimate bodhicitta is where we get into this equanimity. The equanimity as regards to good and bad, and virtue and non-virtue, and self and other, and samsara and nirvana, and so on. Here's where that real equanimity comes in the practice of ultimate bodhicitta. And so what happens is that this practice of ultimate bodhicitta with that equanimity, then this is kind of applied to the practice of conventional bodhicitta and purifies it in a way. Because if we don't have this wisdom of the equanimity, we cannot have equanimity towards the sentient beings. If we don't have the ultimate bodhicitta, that equanimity of ultimate bodhicitta, then we will not be able to have an attitude of equanimity towards the sentient beings and have them all be equal for us. And in addition to that, if we when we are practicing conventional bodhicitta, without the ultimate bodhicitta, we have this sense of I am doing this for sentient beings. There's this real strong sense of I and of the self and the others. There's that separation if there's only the conventional bodhicitta. But what happens when we have this wisdom of the ultimate bodhicitta is that that practice of ultimate bodhicitta will reduce that sense of clinging to the I and others. So we actually reduce more our sense of cherishing ourselves, and we will increase the cherishing of others, that really powerful attitude of the bodhicitta of cherishing others. And also it will reduce our pride, because if we only have conventional bodhicitta and we think we will have this sense of self, I am helping the beings, I'm doing this practice for all sentient beings, so there's a pride that comes in. So the ultimate bodhicitta will then reduce our sense of self and this sense of pride, and it will increase the attitude of holding others as a very high value, and cherishing others is very important. So this is how this practice of ultimate bodhicitta, of equanimity towards virtue and non-virtue, equanimity towards self and other, equanimity towards the samsara, nirvana, and so on. This is how that the practice of ultimate bodhicitta and that equanimity can work together with the conventional bodhicitta.
Jidang chö korang la kunzup dang dundam ni yura. Ni janju ki sem de la ya kunzup dang dundam ni yura. Di ni yura jumze khar sima chik di kunzup ki janju sem di salcha ki sem ki salcha di tengu yures. Pena sangje tamje lor, pena jene sik tabu jena kong la ya sem je tamje ki chedu dini khasa kore janju ki sem zisingi yures. 심지 탐지. 대 지세 김제 간다 고도 장주 심디 공규를 깨리 냠내 치네레스. 다 이나야 공라 심지 탐지기 치도 치니 코랑이 치도 찌기치기요 말에. 코랑 같은 때 딱게 찌지게 코랑이 치도 삼도 당겨요 말. 심지 탐지기 치도 당념 때때 가려서 셔럽 지시네. 전남 심지 장주 심 때니 숨주레스. 숨주 또가야 치도. 살차당 동체니 숨주 또야 치도 relative kore dendame ko ultimate ni niga di sumjures tena genesis se di ngazu khande ji se ge genesis loops la lagi yo mares loops na kongi number chi do dil genesis lagi yo mares genesis khan lagi yo sna toni ningje sumdu nyamlen chi ge ra kong tokgen ji tokpa ji ra toni ningje sumju la tokpa ji ra kong le yule yobe gi ningje dila 아니 지금 남기 sem기기 셰랍게 지신조지라 똑바 공부 똑바스나 거랑이 냠네 셈지라 장주기 셈 딜레 제네시스 라기어레스 compassion emptiness sumjuk dila 제네시스 라기어레스 다디 나랑서 제네시스 나지 톱 거 제발라 디토 거레스 군주 장주 셈도 된다 냐스니까 냠볼 카마데오지 sumjuk 또 거레스
제네시스 그런 토버젤라
Genesis Koran the Subuchido looks as that is Genesis, not that is Genesis. Genesis means compassion and wisdom not separable. The talking tokpachira, toksina realization. Tella Genesis like we rest. One Genesis did.
So if we think, for example, there's two truths, right? In the Buddhist philosophy, there's two levels to reality: the conventional truth and the ultimate truth. And I realize maybe we have been translating previously that term as a relative. But I'm using I was using conventional. I didn't realize the difference. But anyway, what I mean by conventional bodhicitta and conventional truth and so on, what I think before was referred to as a relative bodhicitta or relative truth. Anyway, there's two levels of a truth. There's the conventional truth or relative truth on the one hand, and there's the ultimate truth on the other hand, right, in the philosophy. So in the same way, there's the conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta kind of a map onto those. They work in the same way as the conventional truth and the ultimate truth. So if you say, for example, Tsering, the Avalokiteshvara, on the one hand, his practice is the conventional bodhicitta. He is practicing, he has this motivation to practice for the sake of all sentient beings, this compassionate attitude to benefit all sentient beings. But so that's his practice of conventional bodhicitta, which is the kind of aspect of the appearance, what is appearing to us. Conventional truth on that kind of level. So he has that conventional bodhicitta, which is related to the aspect of appearance, where he has this motivation, compassionate motivation to benefit all sentient beings. But then he also has this aspect of wisdom, the ultimate bodhicitta. And that aspect of wisdom of the ultimate bodhicitta, what it does is it enables him to have a completely perfect attitude of equanimity. So he doesn't have any concern for himself as a kind of ego. He doesn't care even one bit for one hair on his own body, on his own head. He's only concerned with the benefit of other sentient beings. And the way that he is able to have this attitude of perfect equanimity is through this practice of ultimate bodhicitta, of the wisdom that realizes everything to be equal, and or this gives rise to this realization of equanimity. So if we think about the Tsering Avalokiteshvara as the a deity with a certain form, like in the Tanka, he's a white form with these clothes and so on. This is actually not the true Avalokiteshvara, this form that has with a specific body and clothes and jewelry and so on. The true Avalokiteshvara is actually what I have been explaining now. The unity of emptiness and compassion, the unity of the conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta, the conventional bodhicitta being the aspect of the skillful means and the compassion, and the ultimate bodhicitta being the aspect of emptiness, the wisdom that realizes emptiness. So this is the real Avalokiteshvara that we have to accomplish and realize. And if we want to accomplish the form of Avalokiteshvara as it is here, then this is the way to do that, is to actually realize the unity of emptiness and compassion, which is the true Avalokiteshvara.
Okay.
Okay, that's it for today, and we'll dedicate the merit.
Sinze ballar darjinge bayi temba yurin nebe drashi.
Sho.